The day after the anomaly run, Hacked found himself fidgeting nervously as he followed Captain Jeb Sheets through the bustling corridors of the race station. His whiskers twitched, picking up the undercurrent of tension that seemed to permeate the air. Other racers they passed gave them a wide berth, their expressions a mix of fear, awe, and resentment. "Quite the reputation we've built," Killian muttered from behind Hacked, echoing the Hibbard's thoughts. Jeb merely grunted in response, his eyes scanning the crowd as if expecting an ambush at any moment. After their victory in the anomaly run and the revelations that followed, Hacked couldn't blame him for being cautious. As they rounded a corner, a figure stepped out from the shadows, causing the entire crew to tense. Hack's paw instinctively moved to the small blaster he now kept hidden in his fur, a sad necessity in these dangerous times. "Captain Sheets," the figure called out, his voice gravelly with age. "A word, if you please." Jeb held up a hand, signaling the crew to stand down. As the stranger stepped into the light, Hacked was surprised to see an elderly human, his face weathered by years of hard living, but his eyes sharp and alert. "And you are?" Jeb asked, his tone neutral, but with an edge of wariness. The old man straightened, a hint of pride entering his stance. "Greg Hoffman, captain of the Stargazer. You saved us in the last race, pulled us out of that null space pocket when you could have left us to die." Hack's ears perked up at this, remembering the daring rescue that had nearly cost them their lead in the race. He watched as Jeb's expression softened slightly, recognition dawning. "Ah, yes, I remember. Glad to see you made it through in one piece, Captain Hoffman. But I suspect you're not here just to express gratitude." Hoffman nodded, glancing around nervously before leaning in closer. "You're right. I've come to propose an alliance of sorts." Killian snorted. "An alliance? In case you haven't noticed, old-timer, this ain't exactly a team sport." But Jeb held up a hand, silencing his weapons officer. "Go on," he urged Hoffman. The old captain took a deep breath. "Words spreading about what you're doing. The corruption you're exposing, the changes you're forcing. It's giving hope to a lot of us who'd given up. But it's also painting a massive target on your backs." Hacked felt a chill run down his spine at Hoffman's words. They'd known they were making waves, but to hear it confirmed so bluntly. "We want to help," Hoffman continued. "Form a coalition of sorts. Racers who are willing to stand against the corruption. But we need protection, the same kind you've got." Jeb's eyebrows rose. "And how do you know about our protection?" Hoffman gave a wry smile. "News travels fast in places like this. We know you've got friends in high places. All we're asking is for that umbrella to extend a little wider." A tense silence fell over the group as Jeb considered the proposal. Hack's mind raced, weighing the potential benefits and risks. Allies could be invaluable in the races to come, but trusting the wrong person could be catastrophic. Finally, Jeb spoke. "I'll need to make some calls. But I'm not opposed to the idea. We could use some friends out there." The relief on Hoffman's face was palpable. "Thank you, Captain. You won't regret this. We'll..." "Oh!" He was cut off by the sudden blaring of alarms throughout the station. "All racers, report to your ships for maintenance inspection. Repeat, all racers to your ships." As Hoffman hurried away, promising to be in touch, Jeb turned to his crew. "Contact crews. Tell him we need to talk about expanding our safety net. Killian, do a full sweep of the ship before letting any maintenance crews aboard. The rest of you, stay alert. I've got a feeling things are about to get a lot more complicated." As they made their way to their docking bay, Hacked couldn't shake a mix of excitement and apprehension. They were no longer just a single crew fighting against impossible odds. They were becoming the center of a movement, a beacon of hope for other racers. But with that hope came greater danger. As Hack prepared to contact crews, he realized that their next race might be about more than just crossing a finish line. It could be the beginning of a revolution that would shake the very foundations of the racing world. And for better or worse, the crew of the Broken Promise was at the heart of it all. After the tense meeting with Hoffman and the subsequent ship inspection, Jeb surprised the crew by suggesting they all take a break for lunch. Hacked found himself seated at a large table in an observation lounge overlooking the docking bay, the broken promise visible below amidst a flurry of repair activity. "I don't think I've ever seen the maintenance crews move so fast," Killian remarked, his gruff voice tinged with suspicion as he bit into a protein bar. Hacked nodded in agreement, his whiskers twitching as he observed the scene below. "It's not just our ship either. Look at the others." The crew turned their attention to the neighboring docks. Sure enough, every ship in view was surrounded by swarms of repair drones and technicians working at an unprecedented pace. "They're expediting the repairs," Jeb mused, his brow furrowed. "Question is, why?" An uneasy silence fell over the group as they considered the implications. Hack's mind raced through possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. "Could be a gesture of goodwill," one of the alien crew members suggested hesitantly. "After the last race, maybe they're trying to show they care about our safety." Killian snorted. "Or they're setting us up for something even worse. Rush the repairs, cut corners, then watch us fall apart mid-race." "Both are possible," Jeb said, his voice measured. "But I suspect the truth lies somewhere in between. They can't afford to lose more ships, not with the investigations crews mentioned. But they also can't appear weak or benevolent." Hacked sipped at his nutrient solution, grateful for the rare moment of peace, despite the underlying tension. "Whatever their reason, we should take advantage of this time to rest and prepare." The others murmured in agreement, and for a while the conversation drifted to lighter topics. They swapped stories from their lives before racing, shared jokes that transcended species barriers, and for a brief, precious moment, almost forgot the dangers that constantly surrounded them. As Hacked listened to his crewmates laugh and banter, he felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the nutrient solution. This odd collection of misfits and criminals had become more than just a crew. They were family. His reflective moment was interrupted by a sudden burst of activity in the docking bay below. A new ship had arrived, its sleek design unlike anything Hacked had seen before. "Now that's interesting," Jeb murmured, leaning forward for a better look. "That's not a racing vessel. Military, if I had to guess." Killian's hand instinctively moved towards his concealed weapon. "Trouble." Jeb shook his head. "Not necessarily. Could be part of the investigation crews mentioned. Or..." He trailed off, his eyes narrowing. "Or what?" Captain Hacked asked, anxiety creeping into his voice. "Or it could be our new friends making good on their promise of protection," Jeb finished, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. As they watched, a small group disembarked from the mysterious ship, immediately engaged in what looked like a heated discussion with race officials. "Well," Killian grunted, a note of grudging admiration in his voice, "looks like things might finally be changing around here." Hack nodded, feeling a mixture of hope and apprehension. Change was coming, that much was clear. But whether it would be for better or worse remained to be seen. As the crew finished their meal and prepared to return to the broken promise, Hacked couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. The expedited repairs, the new alliances, the arrival of this mysterious ship had all pointed to a shift in the status quo. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Hacked knew one thing for certain: the crew of the broken promise would face them together, united by bonds stronger than any prison sentence or corrupt system could break. With a final glance at the bustling docking bay below, Hacked followed his crewmates out of the lounge, ready to face whatever the future might hold. As the crew of the broken promise settled back into their seats, a contemplative silence fell over the group. The view of their ship being repaired below seemed to spark something in each of them, a reminder of how far they'd come and the possibilities that now lay before them. It was Jeb who finally broke the silence, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "You know, for the first time since we started this crazy journey, I'm starting to believe we might actually pull this off. 50 wins. It doesn't seem so impossible anymore." Hacked felt a surge of hope at Jeb's words. He looked around at his crewmates, seeing that same spark reflected in their eyes. Even Killian's usually cynical gaze held a glimmer of optimism. So Jeb continued, leaning back in his chair, "Humor me for a moment. If we do win our freedom, what's the first thing you'd all do?" There was a moment of stunned silence as the crew grappled with a question they'd scarcely allowed themselves to consider. Then, one by one, they began to share their dreams. An alien crew member with iridescent scales spoke up first, their voice trembling with emotion. "I'd go home to my spawning grounds. I have children I've never met. I'd like to see them, to explain why I've been gone for so long." Nods of understanding rippled through the group. Another crew member, a being of living crystal, chimed in. "I'd return to my forge world. There's a piece of art I left unfinished when I was taken. I dream of completing it, of leaving something beautiful behind." Hack listened, fascinated by the diverse aspirations of his crewmates. Some dreams were grand, starting businesses, championing reforms in the justice system. Others were touchingly simple, feeling real sunlight, tasting home-cooked meals, embracing loved ones long missed. When it came to Hack's turn, he found himself momentarily at a loss for words. I'm not sure," he admitted, his whiskers drooping slightly. "For so long, survival was my only goal. But now," he paused, considering, "I think I'd like to study. To learn about all the incredible things we've seen out here, but from the safety of a classroom instead of the danger of a racetrack." Jeb smiled warmly at Hack's response. "A noble aspiration. Knowledge is a different kind of freedom, one that can never be taken away." All eyes turned to Killian, who had remained uncharacteristically quiet throughout the exchange. The gruff weapons officer shifted uncomfortably under their gaze. "Ah, hell," he grumbled. "If you really want to know, there's this little bar on a backwater moon in the Rigel system. Best damn whiskey in the galaxy. Owner there once told me I could have a free drink if I ever made it big." A rare smile crossed Killian's scarred face. "Figure winning our freedom in this blasted race series qualifies. I'd go collect on that drink, and maybe buy a round for the house while I'm at it." The crew erupted in laughter and cheers at Killian's unexpected sentimentality. Even Jeb chuckled, clapping Killian on the back. As the laughter died down, Hack felt a warmth spreading through him that had nothing to do with the nutrient solution he'd been sipping. For the first time, he could see a future beyond the next race, beyond the constant struggle for survival. It was a future filled with possibility, with growth, with freedom. "You know," Hack said, his voice filled with a newfound determination, "a week ago, I would have said these dreams were impossible. But now I think we might actually have a shot." Jeb nodded, his eyes shining with pride as he looked around at his crew. "That's the spirit, Hack. We've faced impossible odds before and come out on top. We'll do it again as many times as it takes. Because we're not just racing for ourselves anymore. We're racing for each other, for our dreams, for a future worth fighting for." The crew raised their drinks in a toast, united in their hope and determination. As Hack looked around at the faces of his friends, his family, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The dream of freedom, once a distant impossibility, now felt tantalizingly close, and Hack was ready to race with everything he had to make that dream a reality. As the crew's discussion about their dreams for the future wound down, a comfortable silence settled over the group. Hack found his gaze drawn to Captain Jeb, who had listened to everyone's aspirations with warm attention, but had yet to share his own. Gathering his courage, Hack decided to ask the question that had been on his mind for so long. Captain Hack began, his whiskers twitching slightly with nervousness. "You've heard all our dreams, but what about you? Could you tell us about your homeworld and your wife?" Jeb's eyes, usually sharp and focused, took on a distant look. For a moment, Hack feared he had overstepped, but then a soft smile spread across the captain's weathered face. "Julius 9," Jeb said, his voice filled with a warmth Hack had never heard before. "That's my home. Imagine, if you will, a world where the mountains touch the sky, their peaks wreathed in clouds that shimmer like opals in the sunlight." The crew leaned in, captivated by Jeb's words. Even Killian set down his drink, listening intently. "But it's not just the mountains," Jeb continued, his eyes closed as if seeing it all again. "Nestled between those towering peaks are valleys so lush, so full of life, you'd think you'd stumbled into paradise itself. Hidden groves of fruit trees with branches heavy with bounty, their sweet scent carried on gentle breezes. Vineyards that stretch as far as the eye can see. producing wines that would make the finest sommeliers weep with joy. Hacked could almost smell the fruit, feel the mountain air on his fur. He saw similar expressions of wonder on his crewmates' faces. "There's this one valley," Jeb said, his voice taking on a conspiratorial tone, known only to a few. "A place where waterfalls cascade down cliff faces, creating rainbows that dance in the mist. The water pools in natural hot springs, heated by the planet's core, sitting there, soaking in those springs under a canopy of stars. It's like being cradled in the hand of the universe itself." A wistful sigh escaped several of the crew members. Hacked found himself longing for a world he'd never seen, a beauty he could only imagine. "It sounds perfect," Hacked breathed. Jeb chuckled softly. "Oh, it has its challenges. The winters can be harsh, and the terrain makes travel difficult. But that's part of its charm, you see. Everything beautiful there is earned, appreciated all the more for the effort it takes to reach it." "And your wife," Hacked ventured, emboldened by Jeb's openness. At this, Jeb's expression softened even further, a look of pure love transforming his features. "Ah, Alara, she's the heart of it all. You know, I said Julius 9 was like paradise, but the truth is, it pales in comparison to her. Her smile outshines the brightest mountain sunrise. Her laugh, it's like the song of the wind through the valley pines, but 1,000 times more beautiful." Hacked was stunned. He'd never seen this side of his captain before, this depth of emotion, this vulnerability. "She's brilliant," too, Jeb continued, pride evident in his voice. "An astrobiologist. She sees the wonder in every living thing, from the tiniest microbe to the grandest tree. And her strength, she's the reason I keep fighting, keep racing. The thought of holding her in my arms again, of walking with her through those hidden valleys." Jeb's voice trailed off, emotion overwhelming him for a moment. The crew sat in respectful silence, each lost in their own thoughts, their own visions of this world and the woman who clearly meant everything to their captain. Just as Hacked was about to speak, to thank Jeb for sharing something so personal, a shrill alarm cut through the air. The peaceful atmosphere shattered instantly as the crew snapped to attention. "All racers report to your vessels." Immediately a voice boomed over the station's comm system. "Prepare for immediate departure. A new race will commence in 1 hour. Repeat, all racers to your ships. Race commencement in 1 hour." The contrast between the serene moment they'd just shared and the sudden call to action was jarring. Hack's fur stood on end as adrenaline flooded his system. Jeb was on his feet in an instant, all traces of the wistful storyteller gone, replaced by the focused, determined captain they all knew. "You heard them, crew. Back to the broken promise. Whatever they're throwing at us this time, we'll be ready." As they hurried out of the lounge, Hacked cast one last glance at the view of the docking bay. The repair crews were already dispersing, their work apparently complete. Whatever race lay ahead, they would face it with a ship in peak condition and with a renewed sense of what they were fighting for. Hacked felt a new determination coursing through him. They weren't just racing for their own freedom anymore. They were racing for Jeb's reunion with Alara, for a chance to see the wonders of Julius 9, for all the dreams and aspirations they'd shared. As they boarded the Broken Promise, Hack took his place at the navigation console, ready to plot a course not just through whatever challenges lay ahead, but towards a future where all their dreams might become reality. The race was about to begin, and the crew of the Broken Promise was ready to show the universe once again what they were made of. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you loved it. Please remember to subscribe if you did like it so you can see more videos like this, and please give us a like and a comment too. I'll see you in the next one.